Hello, good people. I'm Ayana Angel, and you are listening to the Switch Pivot or Quit podcast, where we discuss career choices through a personal and professional lens. I've made my own Switch Pivot or Quit, going from a sports publicist at the NBA to an author via Simon & Schuster. So I chat with people to help you make informed decisions and let you know that you are not alone in your thoughts and feelings along this life journey. I see you, and these conversations are to serve you. So, today we're going to get into a good conversation, a juicy conversation with my girlfriend, Tiffany Ashitey. And Tiffany, if you do not know her, she is a highly accomplished podcast executive. But her career did not start there, right? She's a marketing maven, if we're still using those words, right? She's been in the business for a long time. Her and I actually met when we were doing internships at Showtime Networks, okay? That tells you how long ago this was. We were interns, but we were getting paid. And her career has gone on to flourish. She has done amazing things, including creating the very first podcast network for Essence Magazine. Everything that you heard from Essence Magazine in terms of podcasting, Tiffany was behind it, had her hand on it, her stamp of approval on it. And now her achievements include Webby Award nominees. Okay, her achievements include she is the U.S. Director of Content for Acast, the world's largest independent podcast network, and so she is a decision maker. And so today we want to talk to her about her career journey as well as the podcasting industry. So many people are podcasters these days. We want to get Tiff's take on what it looks like to be a podcaster and some of the ins and outs that we may not know happen daily in the industry. So welcome to Switch Pivot or Quit, Tiffany.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Ayana, first of all, when you said we met as interns, still can't believe it. I mean, sure, that was only what, 10 years ago? 5 years?
Exactly. Yeah. It was 10 years ago. I mean, hello.
That's it. That's
Good
it.
times, good times, you know?
Oh my gosh, but time goes by so fast. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it does. It does. And so, for people, I want to jump into the meat of things. You can go and read Tiffany's bio in the show description because I don't want us to rehash everything. I think I've said enough. I want to get into what Tiffany has to say and what she knows and how what she knows and what she's learned can serve you. So let's start here, Tiff. In 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
you helped to create and build Essence Magazine's podcast network.
Yes.
What was that experience like to build something from scratch?
Ooh, okay. Wow. So, first things first, definitely have to give props to Charlie Penn, Corey Murray, and Yolanda Sanguini. So, they are the co hosts of Yes Girl podcast. So, that was Essence Magazine's original podcast. And so, Yolanda, Corey, and Charlie, they came up with the concept. They had this podcast going for about a year prior. And if we think about podcasting before the pandemic, right? It was a different thing. Many people didn't know what it was, and there weren't a lot of podcast representation within the Black community or within communities of color. Like if you ask people what a podcast was, they maybe knew, maybe they didn't know, or maybe they knew of one or two shows that they liked, but it wasn't the behemoth that it is now. So if you think about the shows that were popular back then, The Read, Another Round, right? Yes Girl, which was Essence's podcast. Like those were the shows that were out circa 2017, 2018, but it was a different world after the pandemic. So, just giving that backstory to your back to your question of what was it like to start from something from scratch to go from having a podcast to launching a network and building a business around it, right? We talk about content. Content is such a commonplace word now, but what we have to understand is that it's still a business, right? Everything in this world is a business. And so having to think about building a network from a business perspective, making money off of it, making it profitable, looking at your expenses, building a budget, thinking about everything that you're spending money on, how much it costs, having to make hard decisions about, do you hire another editor or do you figure it out with the team that you have? Really having to make those tough decisions to make the numbers work. A lot of that was just, it was exciting, but it was overwhelming, right? Because remember, you were starting from scratch. There was no blueprint for this. You had the precedent of a successful show, but now you wanted to build a slate, a multi-show slate that appealed to different audiences, that made the existing Essence magazine audience feel seen. Like, it's not about you. It's never about you. It's like anyone who's a content creator or who even works on the business side has to understand it's never about you. It's about who you're talking to.
Can you say that again? Oh, because that one right there, that just hits. I feel like that's what's lost with so many content creators these days is they become the content and everything is swirling around them and they feel like it's about them. But tell us again who it's about.
It's about the audience. It's about the people you're talking to. The fact that they are showing up for you every episode, every Instagram live, every podcast, they're showing up and they're giving you the space of their time, the space of their attention, the space of their listening capacity. Like, that's a gift. You could be doing 50 other things, but yet you choose to tune into this podcast. You choose to tune into this video. Like, never take that for granted because they can take that attention somewhere else.
And they will.
And they will.
And they will. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
You have so much knowledge in the business side of things and the content creation side of things. And everybody wants to be seen and heard these days. What has stopped you, or has it ever been a thought of yours to say, I want to go from behind the scenes and I want to be seen and I want to give all my knowledge to the world and I want to put it on the forefront and I want the spotlight to be on me? Because I never get that vibe from you. You are super knowledgeable, but I never get the vibe that says, I know best and I want to tell everybody what I know and I want everybody to be looking at me when I tell them. How have you kind of navigated things in your mind in terms of how you want to show up in your career, whether you want the spotlight on you or not?
Oh, man. Girl, you coming with these questions. I appreciate that. I think for me personally, like my language is I like to share and I like to help. And I recognize that my purpose, part of my purpose, because you know it could change, is to just give. But I think sometimes a lot of people think that in order to give, they have to be the center of attention. And that's not what it is. If you have a wealth of information, which we all do, right? Like everyone knows something that someone else doesn't. I feel like the best thing you can do is share it, right? I think that obviously, yes, that creates good karma, but you never know what the domino effect is of that and how that could come back and help you, or it could help someone else that you never expected to help. I think so often when you think about how do I make this about me, you've already lost sight of helping people.
Wow, that's so true. That's one thing that I can attest to. You're a giver. You're a big giver, and I'm wondering also, when you look at your career and the twists and turns that it's taken, what you were working for yourself prior to working with Essence. You were running your own marketing agency with a co-founder, friend of yours, and you all were doing it successfully for about 5 years. When you had a plot twist with Essence,
Yeah.
was there ever a moment where you said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur again?
Oh,
Or did you feel like, no, this is the lane that I want to go in now, and I want to continue to grow as an executive in this space?
that's a good question. I think life is about chapters. And when I became an entrepreneur, I knew that was something that, like, it was like I could feel it. When you just have like the drive, the passion, the fire, and it was just something that I wanted. And like you said, having done it for 5 years, it was a great experience. We learned a lot. We did a lot of amazing things. But I was at a chapter, and we both were at a chapter where we realized that the industry, because we ran a digital agency, and we realized the industry was shifting and we wanted to absorb more versus serve more. So we
Mm.
know we had to go in house, we had to go get more knowledge, and why not go in the house, make some money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and grow and learn, because you and I can attest the podcast industry alone has changed so quickly in the past 2 years, but the media industry and the digital industry has changed so much,
Yeah.
like in the past 36 months. And it takes a lot to stay on top of the trends and stay in the know and really be able to actually like be of service if you're going to be an entrepreneur. And we realized that the best way we could serve was to go back in house. That doesn't mean that that chapter won't ever come back again. So I never say never to anything, because you just don't know where life is going to take you. I've had so many lives up until this point. I was
Mm-hmm.
studying architecture. I thought I was going to be an architect. I studied architecture for 4 years, intern at some like a New York City firm that had contracts with the city. Like I thought I was going to be a copywriter. I worked at one of the most largest agencies in New York. Like I thought I was going to do a lot of things, and I did them.
Mm-hmm.
And then a new chapter came, and
Mm-hmm.
now here we are. So even going back to your other question of like, oh, why are you not like on stages and doing those things? I speak. So I
Mm-hmm.
speak and I love to share what I know. But again, I think my purpose is just giving. And whatever this chapter asks of me, that's where I'm going to follow.
Mm. Did you ever have a point in time where you had to reconcile with your feelings about making those changes and leaving some of those things behind, like architecture, copywriting? As I know sometimes when people are doing a thing or people know them for doing a thing, their heart may not be in it anymore and they may really want to make a change. They may really want to make a switch, pivot, or quit, but they feel burdened by the decision that they've made to be where they are,
Yeah.
and maybe other people looking at them. Oh, they're going to think I'm flaky if I don't stay the course in this. Or am I letting myself down? Or am I seeing this through? Do you ever feel burdened by um, sort of the expectations to stay the course in a certain space?
Here's the crazy thing about that. Sometimes you stay too long.
Mm.
And you stay too long, and you feel it, right? Like whether it manifests itself physically, emotionally, spiritually, like you start to feel the burden of overstaying your welcome in a chapter that should have closed a while ago.
Mm.
And I think to that point, yeah, definitely. I can tell you multiple times in my life where I wrestled with the decision, and there were just days where I'm like, if it's gonna happen, I've gotta move now. Otherwise, I might sit in this for another 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after contemplating for 6 to 12 months, right?
Right. Right.
So I would say like that's natural. That's being human, right? Some people are quick to pivot, and bless them. That's wonderful. I'm not one of those people. I'm thoughtful. Um, I want to be very like calculated about the decisions that I'm making, but I don't ever want to linger in something and miss an opportunity that was meant for me. That's the other thing. Um, like we're of a certain generation. And so growing up, there was always a blueprint for what success was supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so married to that blueprint that sometimes you don't realize that you need to write or rewrite your own script.
Mm. Yeah.
And so if you get too married to what things are supposed to be or how people say they're supposed to go, you will miss your opportunity. Some of the things that have happened in my life is simply because I decided to say yes and let the rest of it play out.
Mm. Decided to say yes and let the rest of it play out. I love that.
That's it.
When was your most recent, or can you tell us about maybe your most recent aha moment and maybe what it was in relation to.
Ooh, okay. I would say, how would you define an aha moment before I answer that?
Okay, so I would define an aha moment as maybe something that's been swirling around you or something that's crossed your path before, maybe, but one day it just became very clear to you what that was, what it meant, or what it meant to you, or what it should mean to you. And you just had this clarity that you hadn't had before about something.
Okay. I would say that happened not during the pandemic, because I know everyone felt like they had an aha moment during the pandemic, but I would say about a year ago. So I would say like July of last year,
Mm.
like around the time of my birthday. I love birthdays. Like anybody knows me, I love a birthday. It's your own personal national holiday. You better celebrate it.
Yes.
And I was really just kind of like taking stock of like what do I want the next, like I'm in my 40s. So
Mm-hmm.
what do I want the next like chapter to look like? And then I realized that, well, what do I enjoy doing? Like what are my hobbies? And I realized I didn't have any.
Oof. Yeah.
I realized my
Yeah.
hobby was, I like, sure, yes, brunch with friends, that's all lovely, right?
Right.
Like who doesn't love to eat? That's all well and good, but that's not a hobby. Like
Mm-hmm.
I realized, what do I do for fun that's zero stakes, that brings me joy, that I can just like feel free in?
Mm.
And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shoot, I need to figure that out. And it was very much an aha moment, because when you look at life and you realize, like, especially in the US, we put so much stock in work.
Mm-hmm.
We define ourselves by labels, titles, salaries, places that we live, clothes that we wear, restaurants that we go to. Everything has a label on it. And we
Yep.
define ourselves by that. But life is so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're really going to take stock of what life means to us, we have to ask ourselves, well, what makes us happy? Well, the answer should never be just one thing.
Mm.
It shouldn't be, oh, I'm happy because I live in this apartment. This apartment could like burn down tomorrow, and then what happens?
Yeah. Your happiness is gone.
Right.
Yeah.
You should
Mm-hmm.
not predicate your happiness on every one thing. It should be like a quilt or a mix of a bunch of things. And some of those things should be just zero stakes. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy if I go take a walk and hear birds sing, or I'm happy if I play my violin, or I'm happy if I take a dance class. Like simple things.
Mm-hmm.
Those things should bring you joy. It shouldn't just be, oh, if I make this much money, if I work at this company, then I'm happy, because that can go tomorrow.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I had my aha moment, when I realized I couldn't answer that question for myself.
Mm. Yeah. Been there. Yeah, I realized too, like, girl, what are your hobbies? You need to figure it out. Working is not a hobby. So like, what are we doing? Yeah, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you on that one. So, is there anything that you feel like you've discovered about yourself that gives you an advantage maybe in life?
Ooh, interesting. That is a loaded question.
It's whatever you want to do with it, however you want to take it, whatever is like the first thing that comes to mind for you.
I feel like part of my advantage, I think, is empathy, but then logic.
Ooh, I would agree with that. Yes. Absolutely. Hands down for you. Yes. You know yourself so well.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
girl, thank you. First of all, that didn't happen overnight. Listen, when we were interning together, just to segue for a second, going back to when we interned and we were in our early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, coming out of school, just all of the insecurities of like, okay, you're an adult now. All right, you're supposed to be successful. It's supposed to look like this. Come, you graduate, you should have a job within 60 days. After this
Mm-hmm.
internship, what are you gonna do? Okay, you got an entry level job. What's next? Like, never taking time to just breathe and feeling insecure if you looked to your left and to your right and you felt like you were behind.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Girl. So I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate you saying, like, you know yourself because this is a long time coming. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Of course, absolutely. What do you think it took for you to start to get to know yourself? Because I do feel like a part of the process within making a switch, pivot, or quit is knowing yourself better, getting to know yourself better, understanding your wants and needs more so that you can make decisions with you in mind and not with everybody else in mind. So when you're thinking back to your journey of getting to know yourself, is there anything maybe that stands out to you in terms of what you did or what you went through to help you on that journey?
Yeah. I think it's twofold. One, I made mistakes and I forgave myself for them.
Mm.
Because, I mean, with all this technology, no one has still yet created a time machine to go back. So you can either, I tell my team and I tell my friends sometimes, I'm like, you can feel all the feelings, but don't sit in them too long.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you sit in them too long, they start to turn, right? They start to fester. And so at some point, you can feel bad and you should feel the feelings. You should have those authentic moments. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, what do I do now? Where do I go now? And so for me, it was a lot of I made mistakes, right? And actually, it's better when someone who is genuine and constructive
Mm-hmm.
tells you if you've made a mistake or if you fall flat on your face and you realize the mistake that you've made. The most important thing is that you recognize it, you forgive yourself for it, and then you move forward.
Yeah.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think so often we just sit and we just continue to reflect on things that we cannot change. And that prevents us from seeing the opportunities in front of us. And so I think that's what it's been. I think the other piece is I've definitely had experiences where just in many iterations of my career where I've had to face some interesting opposition.
Mm.
And when that happens, sometimes you're forced to figure it out.
Yeah. Yep.
so
Mm-hmm.
so
Whether
yeah.
you want to or not. Yeah. Yeah. So let's switch gears a second and talk about your career. Where you are now, you're in a decision making position. You got the power. Tiff got the juice, okay? I am sure that there are people because you're in a decision making position. I'm sure there are people coming to you on a daily basis and in this podcasting space and thinking, I have all the answers. My show is the best. Acast, please come and look at me and pick me. Why wouldn't you pick me? Are you guys, have you lost it? I'm the best thing since sliced bread and white rice. So, how do you cope on a day to day with all the demands that hang over you? All the people who want your attention, all the people who need you to make a decision about something. And I guess before we get into how you cope, tell us a little bit about, just give us a slice, a headline of what your job really looks like beyond the title.
Okay. First of all, I'm still stuck on this note that you hit.
Don't
White
mind me.
spread and white rice. You better go. You better go.
Oh, the randomness.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so how to put this in 1 to 2 sentences. So essentially, as the director of content, I am responsible for a team that handles the acquisition, creation, and management of content. So think of it similar to like a record label and an A&R team, right? So you have a team that scouts and looks for talent. You have a team that's managing the artists on the label, and then you have me who is kind of like building the strategy around it all. So
Mm.
that's it. It like that's a very like small version of what.
Yes, yes, because we know that it entails so much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, it's a lot because podcasting is so popular. There's so many people pitching, right? Pitches come from everywhere. They come from agents, they come from managers, they come independent, they come off of DM. Like you have so many people that are looking to associate themselves with a network. So obviously they want to associate themselves with a network. They want some of the benefits or perceived benefits that come with being with a network. And because the industry is so saturated, obviously, and competition is so heavy, everyone is just trying to, like you said, stand out, be the
Yeah.
best one. Um, I think, like I said at the top, a lot more creators would be doing themselves a service if they understand that this is a business. And when they're pitching themselves, they pitch understanding that they are a brand, they are a business, and that they should be having that in mind. It's not just, oh, I have this wonderful idea about food and mermaids, and I think it's the greatest thing ever. And no one talks about food and mermaids, and so you want to hear about food and mermaids. Mm,
Do I?
do I want to hear about food
Are
and
you
mermaids?
sure?
Like,
Maybe nobody talks about it for a reason.
right, exactly. And that's the thing. It's when you're pitching, are you doing your homework? Like, do you know who your audience is, right? Do you know who your audience is on different platforms? I think a lot of times people think because they have influence in one place that that influence is immediately going to translate over to another place.
Mm,
And that's not true for any of these mediums at all. You have to know who's paying attention where.
mm, mm-hmm.
And when you're pitching yourself, you are essentially a business. If you walked into a major corporation, they know the data behind their business, like they know the back of their hand. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you're independent doesn't make you any different. You should know those details.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as we wrap up, you just told us how much of a power player you are in this space, right? I'm saying it, Maybe she didn't say it like that, but this is what I'm saying. And you were even featured by the Hollywood Reporter as among their 40 most powerful people in podcasting in 2022.
Yeah.
So, leave our listeners, especially the ones who are aspiring podcasters. Be careful now if you're aspiring podcaster. Be careful, please. But I'm gonna let Tiff take it away. Leave our listeners with something burning that you have been wanting to say to the people of the podcast industry or the people who are aspiring to be in the podcast industry. What have you been itching to convey to the people?
You you better sell that moment. Woo! You are the madam of MCs there. Oh my goodness. I would say to aspiring podcasters and even to aspiring creators in general, understand and be prepared for the long haul.
Mm,
This is not an overnight game. It's not a game at all. Let me just backtrack. It's not a game at all. And this is not overnight.
mm-hmm.
And so if you see this as just like a hustle, as the thing that's going to like just get you the get rich quick, this is not that. I think that the art of storytelling is has been lost in so many mediums, and that's what made podcasting so pure and so genuine. And there are a lot of hardworking people, writers, producers, editors, sound designers, bookers, executive producers, hosts that are so passionate about this medium. If you're going to get into it, please take it seriously.
Yes. I had to clap on that one. Because I know your passion behind it, and I know that what you speak comes from not only experience but also personally seeing some of the things that are really threatening the medium. And so I appreciate you sharing your words, and I hope that so many people get to hear it who are aspiring podcasters so they can really make that decision as to whether this medium is for them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Tiffany. It has been a pleasure. I'm sending you big virtual hugs. Tiff, know I always got so much love for her, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this out of your busy schedule. You were running around today. Meetings, she always has back-to-back meetings, but she took the time to chat with us and talk to us, so thank you so much, Tiff.
Ayana, you are my gal. So you make the call, I'm showing up. It doesn't matter when or where. I got you. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for spending time with us, getting to know Tiffany. If you want to learn more about Tiffany, I will leave all of her details in the show notes. And as always, be well. Okay.